Cool. So we're going to get started. We've got microphones because we are recording this, just to let you know. So we've got an audio recording, and it's streaming just to our AV YouTube account. So that way we can give the link out to anyone who wants to see this in the future, if they couldn't be here, or if you want to go back and reference something. So I will kind of, if you've got questions, I'll pass the mic around so you can ask your questions. That way it's, yep. Just for you. Just for you. I can tell. You want to be up front, right?
Do you want to join me?
So yeah, this is mostly not for in the house. It happens to be in the house for now. So I figured for tonight, we'll start out in prayer real quick, and then we'll get going. Sound good? Awesome. Gracious God, we thank you so much for another day, for another beautiful day, for it is a day that you have made. And as we go through this spring with the ups and downs of warm and cold and rain and sun, God, we just appreciate so much the amazingness of your creation to come back to life after winter. God, as we gather in this place to learn and to listen and to ask questions and to collaborate together on ways to improve a space here that we use to honor you and to bring people together to worship you and to celebrate you. God, be here in our midst, be in our conversation. Pour over Tyler as he presents here today. Give him just strength to be here. Strength to get through a presentation and to answer all the hard questions that we're going to ask. So God, I thank you so much for this community of faith, this community of people who have such a heart for serving you and for reaching our community. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'll say real quick, this is Tyler.
Hi.
Hi,
everybody.
He's coming to us with Spire AVL, which is the company that we've been talking to most recently about this presentation. I think, was anyone not here the last time we talked out in the narthex? One or just a couple of people? Okay. So we've actually worked with 4 different companies on this proposal over the last 19 months. And
has it been 19 months already?
It has been 19 months. 18 for you. So we started looking in October of 2021. We met Tyler in November of 2021 when he came here, and then a whole series of events has brought us back together, where the proposal that Spire has put forward really has fit the needs that we've seen and the things that we've been trying to analyze. And so just real quick, or are you going to cover kind of the problem statement stuff, or you want me to?
Either way, I have a few notes about the areas that we talked about focusing on, but if you have some specific areas,
sounds good.
By all means.
I think really the focus here is that as we really held these conversations with these different companies, our goal was to make sure that we were meeting all of the needs intergenerationally, all of the groups that are involved in using this space, as well as kind of dreaming up what those improvements that we make to help groups that are currently in the church, what those improvements could do to also help us reach out into our community and welcome more people to use this space in new and creative ways to feed them, and who knows, maybe to become a part of us in the future. So we considered all of the things, and we've had a couple of really good conversations.
Yes.
The first time we met with Tyler, it was kind of like seeing a friend that you hadn't seen in a really long time.
It's very kind of you.
Even though I never had met him before. And we went up, Ryan and I went up to Pennsylvania to see a church where they've done a lot of work and used a lot of the technology that they're going to talk about today, or that he's going to talk about today. And yeah, we're just really excited. So with that, I'll hand it over to
Thank you, sir.
Tyler. And like I said, if you have questions, either Tyler can repeat them or you can take the mic as we go through.
Yeah, either way is good with me. But yeah, my name's Tyler Shoup. I am the CEO and sales and design team manager for Spire AVL. So I wear a lot of hats. I oversee a lot of different things for the company, as well as we work with another company called Pearson that does this type of work in education and a whole host of other areas. We've been partnering together on a whole lot of things, and I've been doing some sales and design things for them as well. The reason that Spire exists, the reason that I'm here, the reason that this fortuitous event unfolded was that our business, our strategy, who we are, our identity at its core is to serve the local church. Everybody at Spire, from like owners to installers, is somebody who is either a technician or a worship leader or like Dave will resonate with, all of those hats in their local churches. And it's anywhere. I was ministering with a church that was 70 people to now I'm at a church with 400 to Seth's at a church with 3,000. So we kind of have covered the whole gamut of experiences, not the whole gamut, but a lot of what central Pennsylvania looks like is what we've covered as a community, as a bunch of guys and gals who love the church and love what Jesus is doing locally, and at the same time wanting to equip them to embrace what the 21st century looks like. We all know that COVID hit, and all of a sudden streaming became a massive priority, right? So we know that the landscape's shifting, changing to embrace our local communities really well. And our goal is ultimately to help you do that in the avenue that we're experts in technology, in audio, video, lighting, LED walls, control, all of these types of things. And so as David, Ryan, and myself talked, we really honed in on a few areas that we thought would be really beneficial to explore, and just with conversations and unpacking because I think I was the first integrator here, and then some other folks had a bunch of ideas as they came in, and it's been a really excellent and awesome and enjoyable collaborative effort with David and with Ryan. If I can speak candidly, that's not always the case. Sometimes these projects are difficult and hard, and maybe you're feeling the same way, like, man, we've been doing this for 19 months, and we're trying to slodge through all of this. And so my hope is that tonight I can explore some of the areas that we've proposed to you all, that we can chat through any concerns you may have, and that I can provide solutions, ideas to really hone in on this. And so, like David said, I'm just going to repeat this because I just happen to have this in the slides, is that there's a few areas we're focused on. House lighting. Obviously, there's no house lights on, and that's for multiple reasons, but there's a house lighting reality, right, that we want to take on in this space. And so when I say house lighting, your overhead lighting for the room. So when you walk in, you can hit a button, boom, everything's pretty and awesome and lights and all that good stuff. We can finally see. So I know that that's going to be a blessing to a lot of people who can actually come in and use the space. Or, we've talked about setting up presets for somebody to come in and hit a button and they can actually see the floor to clean. Like, there's certain things that will be really helpful with a new house lighting system. Theatrical lighting, whether it's front lighting, and that word's really scary to people, I think, theatrical. Like, we're not here to put on a performance, right? And that's not the goal of that word. That word is merely to say, hey, we're going to look at some front lighting. We want to do some color wash and some things that enhance the experience, not just put on a show. Nothing about this system is meant to put on a show. It is meant to help people step into a space of worship. As a worship leader, myself, that's like number one goal Sunday after Sunday. After Sunday is like, this is not about us, this is not about me, this is not about all the cool tech. All of this is merely enhancing the experience, whether it's good front lighting, so people who are viewing on the stream can actually see what's happening on your platform, to, hey, that's a really nice color wash, and I'm kind of like setting the atmosphere. Like when you go into a really nice restaurant, you got that dim lighting, and for some of us who are maybe eye challenged, you're like, why don't they turn the lights up? We can hone that in for you. So the goal here with that theatrical lighting is that we're creating this space that has ambiance to usher in a space of worship. LED walls are projectors, the ongoing saga, right? This has been a really big one for us as a community because we have this beautiful big projector, and that was expensive, but also as we go through tonight's presentation, if you will, you'll notice, we're missing a lot of colors and brightness, and the sun's washing this out, and this is really hard to see. And so when Dave came to me after talking to one of our mutual friends, Ryan Murphy, we're like, well, LED walls, ? So that's one of the things that's really exciting about this project is I think while that's a solution that's been discussed and there's a lot of different feelings around it, I think for this space, for this experience, it's a really great option. And so we're going to get into that a little bit tonight. Rigging. Like I said, there's no joke here. We take this part of it very seriously. We do rigging inspections. we take very seriously your safety and our safety. We do not want to put a light up in the air and have it come crashing down. So I'm not going to touch too deep on the rigging things because it's more math than it's really worth getting into, but I wanted to at least go through that because that is part of the proposal that you've all likely seen at this point. So we're going to touch on that really quickly, but I just wanted to let you know, like, of all of the things that we do well and we do seriously, we don't mess around with the rigging. So, like, I just wanted to touch on that at the beginning. And that's all very much part of this. We are securing LED walls. We are securing lights. We are hanging things. Rigging is an important part of this project. And professional services, what are those? It's our labor, it's our time, it's our expertise, and that's the last part of the proposal, which you've likely seen at the end. And so I just have that in there so we can discuss that a little bit, because along with that is the final number for the project, and I wanted to give you some insight on that final number that you'll see, because there's some shifts and changing, and the economy's crazy right now as everybody just goes, amen. So we're going to talk about that briefly. So are there any areas of focus that maybe I've missed in your assessment thus far? And I'll throw a mic at you lightly, gently. Okay, perfect. So let's talk about house lighting. There are some questions about what the house lighting will look like, what it'll feel like. These are the fixtures. The really long, skinny part is the stem. We currently have a 1-foot stem in there. We can quote out any of those various lengths, and what that is will basically be from the top of your ceiling down. Obviously, there's some discussions about the ongoing renovations for the ceiling and what that will look like. So I've only quoted a 1-foot stem just because it's a little bit cheaper and still gives us some flexibility to have, we can cut those down and put them tight up on the ceiling. So these are your house lights. They're going to be controllable from small button stations at a few different points that we've highlighted at the entrances and at one of these, probably that door, right? Okay. It's like, there's no door over there. So so we've highlighted those. It's going to be very easy to use and works really well. The lights that we've specified are 60-degree angle. So in layman's terms, though, that means the coverage in here is going to be beautiful. You're actually going to be able to sit at your seat and read a Bible. You'll be able to stand and read your Bible. Our goal is usually a crossover at 6 feet, and I'm between 5'9" and 5'10". So right about here is how seamless the light will be. You can walk and never leave light. And so that's a really nice experience for people who are coming here because they want to read the Bible, they want to read from the hymnal, they want to do any number of things. Have a meeting like this and look at a piece of paper and not be casting your own shadow because this light's in here blinding you. That will be a really helpful experience to have those lights, to give you uniform lighting across your whole space. I think currently what we've talked about is 9 total fixtures, 3 over here, 3 over here, and 3 down the middle. That's been adjusted slightly to be that number because at the church that David got to go see with Ryan, we have at Carlisle UMC a middle row light. So if you want to do weddings or unfortunately you have to do a funeral, you can bring all the lights down and just highlight this central walkway to provide a really nice light and to help create that setting that's maybe more somber or more celebratory. So we decided having a few more lights to help cover all of those areas while giving you individual control of each light will really help your lighting in this space. So we did talk about, if you're on the stream, you may not be able to see this as well, but the white light, that'll be the finish. We've talked about white, black, whatever it may. You can do custom color. It's not cheap. If the ceiling's going to be white, you may just want to stick with white and be and be good. But that is an option if you're like, no, it's got to match this. Generally, we suggest just sticking with the white or the black. And then what you'll see at the top is your single cells. So those are going to be up here. We have not forgotten you balcony folks. So there will be single cells up there as well. And the beautiful part about all of this, while the power is all installed power by an electrician, all of our data is wireless. So what that means is your labor number is a whole lot lower because we're not in your ceiling crawling around pulling cable to it. We can put these lights up, boom, they work. Generally, we find that if you do wired in a situation like this where we're having to retrofit and do some things, it could be 10 or 20 grand more in labor. While the fixtures are cheaper to do the wired version, it's actually more cost effective to do the more expensive fixture with less labor. You save money that way. And so there may be some concern of like, well, if you're sending data wirelessly, how reliable is that? Anybody in here who's familiar with networking, which I can stop on this at any point because it's a little nerdy, but more or less all of the lights aren't just talking to the transmitter, they're talking to themselves. They're talking to one another. So if they lose data from one place, they'll get it from another. It's called an arc mesh system. So if you can imagine the mesh on your screen door, all of those points are interconnected. So what does that mean in layman's terms? Super reliable. We've had one problem with those lights, and it was because ETC did not update them at the factory. So we had to firmware update all of them on site once. And outside of that one firmware issue at one site, we have not had issues with these. And once they were connected, we've never lost connection. So these are an excellent option to both give you individual control of every single fixture, make the light beautiful in here, to give you a really warm coverage. We picked 2700 Kelvin, which is very warm. We find that really white lights, if you've ever been driving down the road, and I guarantee all of you have experienced this, and somebody with those really blue or really white lights hits you in the face, and you're like, I cannot see. We don't want that in here. We want you to be able to see in here. And so we've picked a warmer color temperature, as well as these lights fade to warm. So if you remember the old, not old, because I remember them, so it's not that old, but the incandescent bulbs, as you would dim them down in your house, they'd warm up and glow a little bit. These fixtures will actually feel like that as you dim them down. They warm up even more. And so it's a really beautiful fixture for house of worship space where you're really trying to use your house lighting as a way that's engaging, but also you can put it on full blast and clean your floor and like be able to see everything. So like I said, these are wireless, and this will be what they look like in this space. Yes? I will come back to you with this because I'm already standing.
Pastor Eric asked a question. So how are these powered? Sure. Maybe I missed that.
No. Yes, so we're going to buy 37 Teslas and park them outside. The Tesla Tower. That's a smarter decision. Can't wait to see that. Man, that budget. So how are these powered? The electrician will provide solid or constant current power to them. So what that means is you have all of these rheostats and dimmers and things over here. That becomes one constant current, no switch. Just imagine the dimmer goes away and you just have solid wire. So you've got the constant current that goes to the light, and it just stays on at the light. How you turn the lights up and down then is via data, not power. So you turn the lights off by actually bringing the values down to 0. So what that in essence means is there's a protocol. We're going to be using SACN, but it's in essence networked DMX. What that is rather than sending power to the light, it is sending information to the light. Much like a computer is sending information to a network, or much like your phone, you send a text and it goes off somewhere. That's in essence what's happening. You go to your lighting console or you go to any of the button stations, you hit that, and the button station's not recalling anything power related. It's actually saying, hey light, everything's down to 0, and boom, it comes down to 0. And that's how that turns off and kills power. Technically, it's always pulling some amount of power because the wireless has to stay connected so it knows to turn back on. But we're talking like minimal amounts of power for those fixtures because you've turned them, in essence, off. It's not using any power other than the small wireless dongle, if you will, that's on each fixture. So that, yes, yeah, in essence, yeah. But rather than power, it's data. I don't know if that helped clarify, because I know that's a little techno mumbo jumbo. Go ahead, I'll catch up. Okay, so let me see if there's a better way for me to explain it.
Okay, I am fluent in theology and church gobbledygook, but not.
Of course.
This. So forgive me. You said, I thought I heard you say that you won't be crawling in the ceiling to put wires up.
Certainly.
So how do the lights get the power?
So the electrical contractor will be the one who's crawling around in the ceiling.
Oh, okay. You just say you won't be doing it. Okay.
I won't be. You don't
Your
want
company.
my.
Your
I'm not gonna.
No,
fit
I'm
there.
not getting up there either. But no, your company. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we will work with the electrical contractor to pull the circuits to the lights. So does that make sense?
Yes.
The
No, I'm
electrician will
good
pull
now.
power to them, and then we're just taking care of the data side. We are not technically licensed high voltage electricians. And that has a significance here in Maryland for us to not be able to do that. In Pennsylvania, everywhere other than Philly, it's sort of the wild, wild west. You can just do whatever you want, and it's a little reckless, and I don't really like it all that much. So we do have experience with high voltage. We're very familiar with working with electrical contractors to get high voltage to different situations. In fact, there'll be one photo that I show you here in a little bit that we can talk more about some of that. But our goal is to not touch high voltage in your church because of the rules and regulations here in Maryland that would prevent us from doing so, because we are not licensed here in Maryland to do that.
So what's the ballpark price?
Sure. For nothing's different. Oh, for electrical, I'd have to ask I'm not sure. And for this building, I wouldn't be able to know that. It would be hard for me to know what your electrician's rates are or what mine are to do this type of work. We generally put a bulk number in if a different electrician that we're recommending is working, and it could be anywhere from $5,000 to, I don't know, I've seen quotes as much as 60 or 70 grand. It will not be that much because your circuits are already in place here. He will, in essence, what I would assume and what I would recommend him to do would be to just continue these circuits here and bring them up to the lights. And because you have an EC that you're connected with, if he's able to do that work, I'm sure he'll be able to get you a good rate. I just wouldn't be able to predict that off the top of my head.
Tyler, do you all serve in some capacity as the general contractors for the total install, including the electricians, so that it's not something that suddenly falls to David or somebody here that has never done such a thing before?
Excellent question. So, yes, we've done this a variety of ways when we've worked with electrical contractors. If David and Ryan would prefer to be the touch people for that, they're more than welcome to be. If they would prefer us to be that, that's fine. Generally, the church will provide a project manager to oversee the project, and that's typically how that goes. Now, what that could look like in reality is that I'm communicating that David has given me the green light to just communicate regularly with the electrical contractor, and then we sort of both serve as primes, would be what they're referred to. We could both be prime contractors. There's been plenty of times where we're both working together and independently, if that makes sense. I'm giving all the information to the electrical contractor. They're doing their work. We'll find out if it works or not. Yes. Or it could be that if you would like for the GC or the electrical contractor to sub under us, we have done that as well, where we can run that contract. Now, I have not included that in any of the labor numbers. There would be some additional charge for administrative fees for us to then become the project managers as well. But that would be something that we've done, etc. So there's a whole host of ways we can do that depending on what ultimately the church would like to do. I try very hard not to dictate to the church what to do because you guys know your community the best. You know where people's strengths are. You know where their weaknesses are. You know who can do what, hopefully. And so I just try to step in and say, hey, here's how we can best partner with you. So that means you'd like for us to be the prime, great. If you'd like for it to be two primes, great. If you'd like for them to sub, we can discuss that further depending on what your needs are.
Hi, I'm Sheila. I go with the pastor.
Yes.
When you use the term wireless, and I immediately start thinking about connectivity.
Sure.
So is there somehow, when you lay everything out, is there like a hard wiring to the console where there's control? And then from that point, there's a wireless modem sort of sending information out. I just raised that issue because, as Dave well knows, because I sometimes help out at the back with AV, sometimes we have connectivity problems
Sure.
here. So I'm just wondering if there would be some impact on.
Yeah.
You know,
So the only time that we've had connectivity issues is when somebody, and this has only been post-project when the IT person came in after us, where they put a router or I think it was actually a wireless access point right next to one of our fixtures. And so it decided to do what's called intermodulate, which means the frequencies are like, hey, we're really close, or we're resonant frequencies of one another. Let's mess everything up. That's been the only time that we've had that. Now we will, and we always do a spectrum analysis before installing these lights. In fact, it's a requirement by ETC that the contractor does that. And so I have talked to ETC about that. There's nothing that stands out in the bandwidth that these lights take up because they're in like the 5G frequency. They're not in the frequency that these mics would be in. So it's much tighter frequencies. So we would likely, I shouldn't say likely, based on what ETC has quoted us, based on what we've viewed for the spectrum in your area, it should not be an issue. And the beautiful thing is with those lights, we can actually set them to specific channels. So if there's a weird frequency that sticks out, when we set them up, we'll know that and can see that and can just move lights as needed across the spectrum that we'll use. So there shouldn't be any connectivity issues. There are options, like I said, to do a hardwired solution. The labor is just a lot more because we are then actually pulling hard cable to those fixtures. We can still address them to have control individually, but the labor number would go up to do that, to forego wireless, but it's typically one or the other, wireless, or we just find that the wireless is just as reliable as the wired because we do all of the work ahead of time to make sure there's no clashing of frequencies, and then we've been golden ever since. Yeah.
So does the system come with its own separate Wi-Fi router that's got a subnet mask and all that? That's
So
unique to the lighting system?
sure, it's not a router per se, but there is an ETC TX that will do all of the wireless transmitting to the fixtures.
So it's a router.
It's very similar, but it is not exactly the same because it's not handing out HDCP
Yep.
or doing anything like that. It's sending DMX protocol
Yep.
or SAC. Well, in this case, it's a wireless DMX, and then SACN will be your wired options. So, yes. Yeah.
And when we had the discussion last month or whenever we had it, the black and white, there was an upcharge for white. Are you saying that doesn't exist anymore? or-
That does. There's a
Oh, okay.
so there's a $100 upcharge. I think it's 100. I'll have to go back and check my notes. I did send them to David, but
All right.
I don't want to tell you 100% wrong. I'm 97% sure because this is being recorded that it is $100 for the house lights, but it could be $150. I know that the ETC juniors and the PARs also have an upcharge, and they're all anywhere from $50 to $150 per fixture for the upcharge to go to white. That's if I can segue off of that. That's actually a really great thing. We generally try to suggest people to choose black over white. And let me maybe explain why, because I know that might seem the opposite of what you would suspect, but Carlisle UMC is actually great. Let me see if I have... So do you see those big white boxes in the corner? Look at how much they stand out. What happens is, because they are white, they are reflecting light rather than absorbing it. Because black is the absence of light, it absorbs the light, they actually disappear easier than white, I'll use the word appliances, the white fixtures, speakers, anything. They actually absorb the light. So we try to say, where you can and where there is consensus, choose the black fixture over the white fixture because it will absorb the light and so it will look smaller in the space, meaning it'll disappear easier in the space. Now again, I know that feels a little foreign. She's like, well, this is a white ceiling, that's black. Those are literal opposites. Yes. And so for some people, they'd rather have the white fixture. So that's ultimately up to you guys. I'm not going to persuade you one way or the other necessarily. You're more than welcome to choose, but I'd rather arm you with the information and say, hey, these may actually disappear more as a black fixture because they're absorbing the light around them. So it's it's a trick of the eye because, God's funny that way sometimes. So that's that. Those would actually be very hard to see in this photo if those were black. But that's my home church, Carlisle UMC. And had they chosen black, it would have been the wiser choice. But we lost that battle. So, that's the powers that be. Again, if you guys choose white, by all means, that's no judgment. So, is there any other questions about house lighting? Cool. Sorry, I know we got, yes.
You said that, I think, once, but just for clarity, how easy is it to use for a non-technical person?
Yes. Another excellent question. Thank you. Our goal, and if I can make a blanket statement and then I'll tie directly into what you're saying, our goal is to make all of this as simple to use as possible, because one of the goals is people from the community can use the space. Anybody from the church can use the space. Somebody who's coming in to clean can use the space. The organist can come in and have a setup ready for them. Like, the goal is anybody can touch anything and it works. So when it comes to the house lighting, when you come in and hit a button, it's one button and your house preset turns on. Just boop. We do have some little tricks up our sleeve to make this a little bit more fun. So if you do have another church that ultimately is joining you guys again in this space, or you need a youth setup, we're actually installing, and I think I can jump in here. It's the ETC, where is that? It may not be in this portion. Sorry, I've got several different lighting. It is somewhere in the design, but I cannot find it here. I will find it later so we don't waste too much time. But we've actually have, as part of our quote, a small touchscreen that's going to sit in the front of house booth. So that way, let's say the cleaning person needs to come in and have a really bright light. They can have that. The organist just wants like this one light on so they can see but don't want to turn everything on. They can do that. And all of that's going to be able to be set up by the technicians ahead of time, or we generally try to get a list of 5, 6, 8 presets that the church wants, and we will set those up for them. So that way, that gives Ryan, that gives Dave, that gives yourself, that gives everybody time to figure out how to use the equipment and learn without being like, we don't have any presets, what do we do? We will get a baseline set up for you so you can continue to learn and grow in the system. And hey, at the end of the day, you may delete all of our stuff because you're like, we've changed. And that's like, awesome. That's what we want to equip you to use the gear rather than just be like, we're stuck with this thing. And that's the beautiful thing with the touchscreen is you can do all of it from the back. So there is a bit of a learning curve with that, obviously, with playing with the whole lighting system. But in terms of everyday use, general church person, Jim Bob, can walk in here, hit a button, and be good to go. Yes?
Is there a limit to the number of presets?
Yes.
But we'll never reach it, right?
Please call me when you do. So I know there is, and you'll have to forgive me because the number's so stinking high that I didn't put it to memory. Because I was like, I will never touch that with any, I can't think. It was to the point where we were talking about it in the office, that question, how many presets can we do? And we looked at it and we said, there's a multiplication number in here. That's higher than we'll ever need. Rather than just adding 10 and 10, it was like 1,000 times a million. And we're like, so many zeros. So I don't think you'll ever hit that many presets. If you do, like I said, call me. Now, that does bring up an excellent question, though, that with the current lighting system, you have what's called one universe, which is basically how many channels for lighting you can have. You get 512 channels per universe. So you could potentially hit that. You'd have to add a whole lot more fixtures based on what we've done, because I think you're probably looking at 300 to 400 channels, so 300 channels that you'll likely use, but that's with everything spaced out. You've got plenty of room to grow, add more fixtures, those types of things. So I don't foresee that ever being an issue. And what's great is at that point, if you're starting to expand, there's options to expand. We're putting in the entry-level ETC console that also has streaming ACN, so it's like 1A, 1B. And it'll work really well for this solution. So you can access all your house lights and all of your theatrical, your pars and spots without, without having to worry about your channel count too much. So there's room to expand. Now, if you get into movers, and we've had this conversation, you likely won't be putting in a ton of moving lights because this isn't a show, right? There's plenty of churches that do. My church does. We've cut back on a lot of it recently because it was getting blinding and ridiculous. We had a tech who really liked lighting design. So you may look at wanting to update your console then, but that's down the road and maybe not even part of your math at all in this. So for now, for the next 5-10 years, like that's all like perfect. And it'll probably take 10 years to decide what you want to do from there. So I think this is a really great solution for channel count, for presets, because the ETC has a ton of presets. You can also set up presets on the you have the CS20 console, which we'll look at in one of the other portions of the design. So you've got plenty of room to grow, plenty of room to flex, with the intentionally designed simplicity of I can hit a button and everything works great. Hello, welcome. Sorry, that was rude. I don't want to point you out, but welcome to the Shenanigans. Somebody's attended if you're on the live stream. So that's in essence what this portion of your proposal is. All of those fixtures, both the recessed and the pendants, your TX1s doing your transmission. We do have a DMX splitter because we're going to have transmission out to multiple TXs. There's one TX for the house, but then we're using a separate kind of transmitter because they cannot be the same transmitter, or I should say they're intentionally designed to be different transmitters that we're going to use for all the theatrical. So we're going to split out to 2, possibly 3, depending on how we want to wire the LED strips, which I'll touch back on really quickly. So we've got a DMX splitter just to be able to split all that out. Then you've got your Echo Touch controller, which was the thing I was originally looking for. So of course it is on here. That's your touch screen that I referenced where you can have all your presets and all those things accessible. Button stations. Now, really quick on the button stations. These are Echo button stations, which that doesn't have to mean anything other than those are currently back ordered until 2024. So what we're gonna do is we have some in stock that we're gonna put in and then come back down and switch them out as soon as they're in stock. So that way you've got a fully functional system as soon as you install. So we have the appropriate gear in stock. They look slightly different. The functionality is all the same. And in fact, the ones we're going to put in are like 3 times the price. So we want to make sure to leave you guys whole and have a system that works. But that is one thing that I quoted out, the cheaper thing. We're going to put in the more expensive thing until the slightly more cost-effective thing finally arrives. I'm sorry about that. We're 90% of the way back from COVID. You guys know there's that gaping 10%. And then there's some hardware rigging in here. I have updated the proposal, so you'll notice that the rigging hardware has been added to the rest of the rigging portion. This was when I was building everything out and I forgot to move that over. So that's no longer there like that, but that cost is still in there. Is there anything else with the house lighting? Everybody feel like I know where we're going? Yes. This is for you.
This is just a brief question. I know you talked about the upcharge if we got white versus black on the actual pendants and the other spots. But I noticed you talked about the touchpad and a few other things. Is there also an upcharge to get that in white?
Excellent question. So that is not an upcharge to get those in white or black. Those are all just like a plastic. I mean, it's hardcore tough stuff, but it's all the finishing around it. That's all the same price regardless of color. So I knew your front of house had a white paint around it, and so I figured that might blend in more. Again, black's great too. Like whatever color everybody wants is fine with me. So I just happened to, that's the first one that popped up, but since the price is the same, that's for, I think we discussed that all of those would be white for now, both the button stations and that, so they were all the same. So I think that's how we put the white one in, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So I imported the cost for the white ones for now. So that way you had the higher cost and you would know what that would be. This will look slightly different when you see the updated proposal because I've got that all re-quoted through ETC because the prices have continued to go up. So you won't see that it's necessarily spec'd out as white, but I can forward the email chain to David so he can see that, yes, in fact, everything in the quote is currently white for the house lighting. So the pricing will probably change slightly if you were to choose something else, and I can send an email. They can usually revert that and get an updated cost to me pretty quickly. Now, if we wait 3, 4, 5 months and the cost goes up, it may be no difference anyway. So that's just a quick note to say that if we're slow on getting that sign and the price goes up, you may have to choose black over white if budget's a concern, because the additional cost to get the repaint. So just a quick note there, and I'll touch back on that towards the end as well. But yeah, all good questions. Anything else? Excellent. So let's talk about theatrical. Again, like I said, we're not trying to do anything crazy in here. Color is really nice. It's really helpful. You're able to do backlighting. That really helps for the stream. It creates a separation for you as a person on the platform for the cameras. So what we've done is we've provided 12 ETC CS Spot Juniors. So those are an awesome light. I'm really excited for you guys to get them in your hands because they do color, they do warm light, cool light, they are zoomable lenses, all of that meaning they're really flexible. You could totally update your front lighting 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road and still use these fixtures in weird creative ways because they're really flexible. Our whole goal with the front lighting was that you didn't get stuck with a specific lens length because then you can only do that size of a spot. What are you going to do with that light later if you need to change it? Get a new lens, spend $900 getting a new lens tube for a fixture you've already spent $2,000 on. That's a really frustrating process. And so for the juniors, because we're still dialing in where exactly these will be, and because we're taking a look at how the ceiling will be redone, these are going to give us some really great options moving forward to put these lights in a whole host of potential places. Because they're zoomable, you're not stuck. And because they do color, while I don't suggest doing front lighting with color, because if David got back there and was like, front lighting blue, and I just turned blue, that's going to be distracting. I'm talking about Jesus and I look like a Smurf. Not great for your sermon, I would assume. Maybe, never know. Well, and that's the thing. The great thing with these fixtures is the you never know factor. This gives you a ton of flexibility both now and down the road. And so I'm really excited for you guys to try these out. These are all going to be wireless as well. So we're actually going to set this up with, likely the front lighting will be across these two sections here of the ceiling. And so we're going to put a receiver on either side. So again, we don't have to run cable up there, saving a ton of money on labor. Because we don't know what the ceiling's ultimately going to look like, we'd have to charge a lot more for our labor number. And the cost of $848 for those two transceivers, it'd be a lot more for labor because that's one guy half a day for us. That's slightly more than one guy half a day. And we could not pull all the cable up there one guy half a day for that cost. So that's why that ETC splitter was in there, or the NTEC splitter was in there previously. This is going to receive one of those DMX sends. So you will have really great front lighting. We're going to have 12 of them. Here's why there's 12, because you may say, well, that seems like an arbitrary number. As Dave and I were in this space, and I'm going to try to stay on camera, but I'm sorry, stream, if I wander off. We kind of designated there's like 6 key spots here on stage, here on the platform, between over here with all of these fun folks and knowing that there's people up here and people here, and you've got a choir and you've got the pastor preaching, and I'm probably out of the stream now, but you also have your altar. All of those are key spots you want to have lit to be able to see. And so one of the really helpful practices with lighting is called two-point lighting, meaning you're getting hit with 2 lights from not opposite, but different degrees, different angles. So that way, if I turn here, I'm lit. If I turn here, I'm lit. That means you're going to be, so while you're preaching and you're running around, it's like the Holy Spirit's moving and it turns into an AOG church in here, what can happen is you're still lit the whole way across. So that's a really helpful thing for the stream especially. Keeping all of this lit with two-point lighting means you're not going to turn out of your lighting. So our goal is to have these fixtures as wide as possible and to throw as much light up here as possible. What's really great is we can then make adjustments from there. If Ryan and Dave and whomever else is a stakeholder in this decide, hey, we really just want to highlight over here a specific way, we then have enough fixtures to have a special or two in there as well. So this gives us all of the functionality we need to cover the whole stage with 2-point lighting, so everybody looks pretty, everybody looks nice on stream, everybody's well lit, and we'll do it. The general rule of thumb is a 45-degree angle. So that's enough to cast light onto your face. If it's too steep, right, you have those weird, crazy shadows that happen when somebody's not well lit, and it's like all shadowy, and you've got kind of the raccoon eyes going on. And if it's too shallow, like if it were at the projector right now, that would blind Dave when he's trying to lead worship, or while you're preaching, or the choir's trying to sing, the lights would just be right in their eyes. In fact, that's like a 10-degree angle, so that's wild. So our goal will be to install these at a roughly 45-degree angle with a nice wide throw on them to cover as much light with 2-point light. And it's gonna look so pretty. And because they can do some color and some other things, and it's all accessible via DMX, the same protocol they're using for your house lights, all of this is integrated together, whether it's the lighting controller, whether you want to put your front lights on a button station or your touch screen. Anybody can come in, and if you have the preset made, can come in on the button station, turn this on, and you can incorporate not just your house lighting, but your front lighting, or your down lighting, or your up lighting, or all of it, whatever your heart desires, and whoever is prepared to make those presets for you. So that's what these next 3 areas are all about, whether it's stage lighting. We have 14 PARs. The reason why there's 2 more than that than the other one is we've decided to put 8 fixtures up to do down lighting, to cast color both behind and to also help separate for camera, like I was talking about earlier. We also wanted to add 4 more to the floor to do some uplighting for some color wash, because you already have some fixtures, and we're gonna see if we can incorporate those in. Again, we can add all kinds of fixtures to this. Like, we're really just on the cusp of doing like really creative lighting, but I also know this will be a huge step for your community just to have like integrated color into what you're doing on this wall and on the platform and all of those things. So and again, those are all going to be wireless as well, except for probably the floor, because there's already I think a run up here that will either pull a DMX line because we have access below. But we do also have a transceiver in this as well to get up top to do wireless across the top. So there'll be 8 and 4 more down here, but we can also adjust that number if you want more on the floor, less up top, want more lights, less lights. That's all flexible. 6 on the floor. Thank you for doing my math. I got really excited and didn't math. So if it's 8, I know that we have 8 because of the rigging hardware, that 8, but again, we can add more rigging, the UB2Bs, to that and make adjustments as needed. We just felt like that's a really good number for us to be flexible with, that we'll finish honing in on as needed. And if this works, great. You know how much about each fixture is here. This is one of the things that has not gone up recently, so it will either go up this quarter or hopefully holds, and I'm praying it holds. So yeah, and then we just have some cabling to get a hard run to the floor, so that way you don't have just a wireless thing sitting on the floor. We'd rather hardwire that so it's safe, and because there's drop ceiling and access downstairs, that's super easy, and there's cable run up here all over the place, so we've got paths and means to get up here. And then the very last thing is just the lighting console. So you'll see ETC CS20 AV. That's gonna be your lighting console. So much like you have a soundboard back here to do all of your levels for sound, this is what's gonna control your lights. So if you're gonna have Ryan, Dave, whomever, sort of geek out about the technical stuff, they're gonna be able to dial in your presets from here. They're gonna be able to actually do all of your show, what would be referred to as a show in lighting. They can actually change your color scenes throughout your morning. This is a really great, flexible, get into the ETC EOS ecosystem, and I highly recommend it. We use it often where a $12,000 lighting console is not an option. So this is a really great price for a really great board, and I absolutely love it. I'm more of an audio guy, like I said, musician, like I want to mix, but even I, like the not bright audio guy, can sit at this console and get a show up and running. So like, again, this is really easy to train, really easy to help people get into, because again, not only do we want end users who are the community to be able to use it, we don't want to give Dave and Ryan a headache. We don't want to give more headaches to trying to onboard a tech team. Yeah, we want to help them as much as possible, be able to make this a place that's easy to operate, not difficult. And so all of these tools have all of these things in mind. So I know there's a lot there with the theatrical side that may be a bit confusing. Is there anything I can answer, or anything that like, hey, you just ran through this whole thing and you didn't explain it? Is there anything I can explain better? Yeah. Oh yeah, you need a microphone. I'm sorry, I thought I'd be better at that.
One of the things that we've talked about in this is because of the way the lighting is right now in the
Yes.
space, whether it's the choir that's up front with hymnals or the bell choir that's up with their music,
Yep.
there's not enough light up front for especially some of the older members who participate in some of these groups to be able to see. So
Sure.
how is what you're proposing going to help those groups that are up front doing
Excellent.
that part of leading?
Yeah, so that's a big part of having this light on stage coming down, so people can actually see what's in front of them. Now, there's a bit of a trick to that. We want to make sure they're not casting shadow on their things, but the goal with some of that is to provide lighting for people who are on stage as well. Like I said, it's a little tricky because we want to make sure they're not, you're going to be casting shadows somewhere, it's just where. We're throwing light around all over the place. It's going to happen somewhere. So the goal with the 2-point is to eliminate as much of that as possible, but then also with the way that we are hoping to design the downlighting, we can eliminate as much of that shadowing as possible to help illuminate as much as what's happening on stage for both the end user and the stream. So hopefully, if you're in the choir, I shouldn't say hopefully, when you're in the choir, you'll be able to sit there and be able to look and read and see things. Or if you're preaching, you'll be able to actually see your notes, or not notes, or manuscript, or Sanskrit. Okay, excellent. Whatever the case may be. I know I've watched some of the streams and I like your style, man. I dig it. So yes, the goal is for some of that downlighting to be able to be usable, multi-purpose for those needs. Yeah. One thing I keep forgetting to touch on, we also chatted about and nerded out about, I shot over this. You may have seen this photo already, I'm not sure. This is one of the spaces that we did in York. It's wild. We're not going to get into it because I could talk about it for hours. It was one of my first designs that I was ever a part of. It's actually 4 rooms in one. You can see there's lights in the center. You can see there's lights on one wall. You can see there's lights on stage. You can see there's lights in front of the stage. This was a space that has actual between 4 and 12, depending on who was counting the day, different configurations for the room. They could do worship in the round. They could do worship on the west wall, on the north wall. It was just a wild time setting that up. But the reason I show this is because of those blue and light blue sort of aqua colors on the side. Our goal is to integrate a similar lighting feature in this space to help with house lighting along these alcoves here. As you see now, you've got some light coming up here. Our goal is to be able to replicate that and make it controllable by your whole system. So what we're going to do is we have a higher end LED tape solution, which I know sounds crazy because if you've seen like the kids on TikTok are just throwing LED all over their house. It's not that. It is a high-end solution that's DMX controllable, so the same protocol that we're doing to control everything else. So you can actually do uplighting up these walls, much like this is lighting out the front of those fins. So it can be theatrical and be a bit more color, and I don't have a different version of that, so I have only the colorful one. But that's a great use case for that, where it was a feature, but in here we want it to be both a feature and helpful for the house lighting to just add more light, fill in the gaps that you may have. Or if you're doing an event and want some like really intentional low light, but want some color up the sides of your room for a youth event, let's say, Ryan doesn't have to come in here with a million trusses to do a bunch of uplighting all over the place. Ryan Murphy, sorry, not your Ryan, different Ryan. You can actually have some integrated color in here for some big events. So again, that may not be an every Sunday thing where you're throwing a ton of color, but you can do a really nice amber to match the warmth of your house lights, and it all looks the same. It all looks like it's part of and integrated into one house lighting system. So it's super low power. Again, we can reuse the circuits that are here and wire right into them with a basic whip. So I can do it. so you can do it too. So that's, again, I know it looks a bit more theatrical in these photos. However, I think it's going to be really great in your space here.
So when you say up, like, you mean shining on the ceiling per se, not the brick?
Correct. Correct. Yep. Yeah. Oh, thank you. I keep forgetting. So the question was, for these LED tape in the alcove, will that be going up the wall, or up into the ceiling, or down the wall? And it's going to be starting the alcove going up the length of the ceiling, not down on the brick. Now, you could do down the brick. There's no way currently to cover that because it's a bit crude. It's like an aluminum backing that we're actually like soldering down. So it's not the prettiest looking thing, but because it's in the alcove, we typically what we'll do is we can actually secure it in the alcove. So it looks really intentional, but it's not the prettiest fixture, if that makes sense. So the whole point would then be to hide that in there. So if there's a way to hide it on the bottom, you could always do downlighting. Another way to do that would be if you'd want to secure PARs with a really wide throw in these blank spaces. You could always add more PARs and do things like that. We've talked a lot about different theatrical things you could do in here. Because there's brick and metal and all these like beautiful textures, the lighting looks so much better when it's on a texture. And so if you can use some of the natural texture you have in this space, oh, man, like the brick gives you the old school vibe, you light it, you got the new school vibe. It's a very flexible feature that covers everything and anything. You don't have to use it every Sunday if you don't want to. If you're having a very traditional Sunday, great. If you're bringing in the gospel choir and you want to get crazy with it, by all means, you can do that too. So that's not part of the design, but can always be something added in the future. Again, because we're adding DMX drops here, we can always split off DMX, not infinitely, but enough to add some more lights. So yeah, so that's the other part of that that's in that photo. So that's all of the lighting portions of this. Do you have questions? Do you have quandaries, concerns? Anything I can address about lighting right now? Or anything I can even re-explain because it was techno mumble jumble. Sweet, okay. So here's the fun one. LED walls. So I know this is a big question for everybody because you have this projector, you've invested some money into it, but as you can see, there's people actually standing in front of the shot, but it's really hard to tell, right? Some of your darks, because you can't get bright enough in here because the light's washing it out, it's really hard to do projection in here, really hard. That's not to say it's not feasible. However, I just took a look at and I sent the updated projector numbers to Ryan. The projector that would be equivalent to even getting close to the output of an LED wall is now 25, it's almost 23 grand just for the projector and another 4.5 for the lens. And that's just one, and that doesn't count a screen. That doesn't count hardware to get out to those locations to send the video data. It's a thing. And so I want you to know that option's out there. However, it's extremely, extremely expensive and may not ever actually be as bright as you'd like it because you may have noticed the sun is undefeated. It is bright. It's a hot big ball of gas in the sky. You cannot overcome that. The sun, our Lord and Savior. Both accurate statements. A joke was made about Jesus. Everybody chastised the pastor. If you're on the stream, because they couldn't hear you, so I get to write the narrative. So yeah, I want to make you aware of that. To do projection in the space is about $90,000 to have 2 projectors and 2 screens. It's just over 90. I think it was like 93 something or 92 something. I would suggest not doing it. It will never be bright enough. It will never overcome the sun because there's so much beautiful ambient light in here that your only next option would be to add shades in these windows. And you don't want to do that because look how pretty it is out there. Like I'm so jealous of where you guys get to be. Like our church is out on a farm and it's not even nearly this pretty. Like this is such a beautiful spot. Having the beauty of nature with the context of this building, the way it looks and feels, and then the cost of adding remote screens in or the shades in, it is not worth the cost when you can do something like an LED wall that emits light rather than reflects it. So the big point I want to stick on here that I hope is helpful is that with a projector, you have your light coming out of the projector, hitting the screen, bouncing off, right? So it's reflecting the light back at you. If the sun is also on the screen, that's why you have so many issues. The sun is also reflecting. Again, your eye is trying to make sense of all of that data, and it's just a blur. The sun washes it out, and you'll never win. With an LED wall, the individual light, the individual pixel, is emitting out. The sun does not play on the reflection at all because the light's being emitted, not reflected. So you can get infinitely brighter, way better contrast, way better color, and the sun has zero impact on that. I think there was a question at one point about, well, won't there be glare? There's no glass cover on these. These pixels are have individual little cells on them to fill that little tiny pixel of light, but it is not glass. It does not glare. Like this, the sun will not beat this. Not the Jesus sun, just caveat, ball of fire sun. Just to be straight, for the record. So I just want to be like really clear why I've suggested that. And I'll be honest, I was nervous suggesting it. I know an LED wall is a very modern thing. But also, it's the right choice for your space. It is more cost effective. You'll have a much better outcome. In fact, I think I have, you're 30 grand less to do LED walls in here. And you'll have a much more beautiful picture. So all of that work that you guys do putting slides together, if you want to do videos, you have VBS in here and want to do some really cool interactive videos and things, like the way that you guys can use video in here, I can't begin, I don't know because I don't know your community, but I do know that what I've seen it do for other churches is groundbreaking, and I don't say that lightly. You've likely seen this photo if you were in any of the meetings. This church approached me 2021, and they said they're having the very same issue you guys were having. We can't yet, you can see there's all of those house lights right along the top, and so they used to have projector screens here. Well, imagine all of that light on those projector screens they were having while it wasn't the sun. They had lights that they couldn't turn off. And so they're like, we can't see anything on our screens, so we put in these LED walls. And the feedback I've gotten from Jason, the worship person over at this church, has been immense. Like their interactions, the way they've been able to use video, the way they've been able to use ProPresenter and their moving backgrounds and all these things, it went from being something that they were frustrated at every Sunday to now every Sunday became, how can we use this? How can we do something cool with this? How can we captivate people to bring them into a space to be ready to worship or just to find out who Jesus is? How can we use this now? And so while I was nervous because I know how forward-thinking an LED wall can seem, I also see no downsides to it. It's the best thing for the space, and I wouldn't speak so fervently about it if I didn't believe it. I would tell you if I was on the edge about it. I wouldn't have designed it this way. I designed this, I stand behind it. So I want to just be really clear that I think this is a really great option for you, and I highly suggest it because of all of the reasons I've explained. Additionally, we're nerding out about it a little bit. You can turn the brightness up. You can turn it down. We can dial in colors. We can do so many things that you can bring your LED wall down for a service if you're doing, it's one of the Holy Week services where all the lights drop down, and thank you. I was like, that's a Christmas tree. So I was trying to remember the name. Thank you for that. So if you're doing that service and you want to have a really low output, there's so many ways that you can craft your service with video. I want it for you so badly because I just see the benefit. So I'm not going to go too far down on this because I know this has been an area of conversation a lot recently. For you, at least that's my understanding, this has been discussed and understood, and so I highly suggest it. But I didn't want to just brush over it like it was a given. I wanted to at least give you my thoughts on it. So is there any questions about that? Yes? Oh.
How many years, is it 30,000 hours of use you get out of a panel?
Sure. So I'd have to go back and look at our data from the manufacturer to give you an hours number. We typically so creation warranties for a year. That includes all of the additional panels and pixels that you may need to warranty it in that time, and that's free of, I shouldn't say free of cost, that's included in the cost, is the 1-year warranty and all of the additional modules and panels. Occasionally a pixel will get knocked off in shipping. Nothing is ever perfect in the world of shipping anymore, so we've learned to order like 10% more modules to add to the panels if something does arrive broken. We then have a source he's in Tennessee now, who we can send those to and resolder or fix broken LEDs. So what I would say is we warranty for a year. We expect them to last 5 to 10 years, possibly needing to replace a module in that time. What we've also seen, though, is that as long as you get through the first year without any issues, you likely will not have any issues in perpetuity for the life of that wall, which should be at least 5. We typically will tell you 5 to 10 years for that. We also, though, encourage, the reason it's 5 to 10 is we encourage people to start to shift to a 5-year cycle with their equipment, knowing, in the next 5 years, we need to start to look at what will this look like to replace or to fix. That's not saying it'll only last 5 years. Anything that we're suggesting is warranted for much longer than that. The LED arrays on the lights are 5 years, and then the power supplies are 10 years. Typically, you'll find that you don't have an issue with the LEDs, it's the power supplies. And so we also order additional power supplies to make sure those all get warranted for you as well. And so I would say, generally speaking, you'll get at least 5, with the caveat of you'll get way more than that, but in terms of keeping us safe of any wrong communication, most of our clients, once we get through the first year and work out any kinks that could possibly happen in shipping. So like these LED walls we put up 2 years ago, we have not been called back to look at them once. We've been back on site to look at a control issue they were having that was a Crestron issue, not an us issue. We fixed that and they've continued to work fine. So all of the other churches that we've installed these walls, so CUMC, we've had a few modules go bad on that wall. That is because they brought it in from China and then it sat in the warehouse for 2 years. You're supposed to put them up as soon as you get them, so any water or any moisture gets cooked out to save all of the components inside. So that was a shipping and storage issue that Carlisle UMC was unaware of. But those have all been replaced because they were under warranty. And it's now working flawlessly. Once worked out, COLC is the top right corner. Again, they had a computer issue installing that, but the LED wall was perfect. That's obviously a really weirdly shaped screen, so we had to do some really crazy pixel stuff on their computer. Their computer didn't like it. But the LED wall looks so good once we got their computer to behave. Bottom right here is Spry. We put those in flush mounted, how we will here. So the frame gets secured to the wall and boom, 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 it all goes up because these panels are so light. And so, again, we have not been called back on that one either. So COLC, Spry, no callbacks. Carlisle UMC we go to. So we find any issue immediately because that's our job. So for both accounts, for church and for work. So we've found a few things, but those are not the typical walls we use. We actually use a really high-end wall for that, and we shouldn't have. So we should have stuck with our creation walls that we've always gone with, unless I didn't design it. So I don't know if I have any other. Yes.
The one in the lower right, is that similar in size to what we have here? And would we get those is that a 6x9 or a 9x16?
Yeah, so this photo on the lower right with looks like a girl wearing headphones in the image. So that's that is the size you guys are looking at getting. So it's 16:9 aspect ratio, and then, oh yeah, thank you. You're the man, the myth, the legend. You're perfect in all your ways. Everybody give it up for Dave. All right, Dave. So, yeah, Dave. So, that's about the size that this is, and that will be, I can look, I have so So it's 6 foot by 9 foot, approximately. So this is in meters. So I've put it in feet because we talk feet because this is America. But it's 1.8 meters by 2.7 meters. So it's just about the same size as what's in that photo that Dave just brought up that I likely lost. There we go. There we go, Dave. So yeah. So yes.
So we have a screen up there right now. I have no idea what the dimensions are. Would you have any guesstimate for me as to what the LED wall size would be like, given what we have up there?
So if I remember correctly, it's just slightly smaller in both directions. Is that correct?
Yeah, the screen that's up there is about 6.5 feet tall, and it's a 16 by 10 aspect ratio instead of a 16 by 9. So, yeah, it would be just slightly, 6 inches shorter than that.
Yeah. So it's very close to this, and that's part of why we've recommended 2, because this isn't a massive screen. So if I think you've already gone over the side angles, so I won't belabor that too much. But being able to sit here and look straight, or sit up here and be able to look across, or being able to sit here and look up or across, it gives you some options without having to sit over here and break your neck trying to look at the words for Phil Wickham's new song. So it's I think it'll be really beneficial. Again, that's what the cost is in there. That $62,000 is for the 2 walls. So yeah, I would suggest doing 2, but there'll be 2 of, like Dave said, about 6 inches shorter and about the same width. So, yes.
I don't know if I've ever seen an LED wall. So what does it look like when there's no one in here and all the power's off?
So it's imagine a TV, but imagine it's not glaring at you. So imagine you're not seeing the reflections off of it. It feels very much like that. You will see you'll be able to see the pixels if you're coming up front, as in you'll be able to kind of see the beveling between the pixels if it's entirely off. But that would be the only thing. It's pretty much a black surface, and you're like, is there some texture on that? Yeah. So, but but yeah, in essence, very similar to a TV, just without the glass. If you need a frame of reference, a matte finished TV. So, yeah. Sorry, there was another hand. Yeah.
I know you picked the size because of the way the pixel units are created. How much more expensive would it be to go like the next size up?
Ooh, quick math. I know I looked at this once and I sent it to Dave, or I said I was going to look at it, and then Dave, I don't remember. We had a conversation about it. I think I just kept that number to myself. I can run the numbers and look for you. I don't know off the top of my head. Let's just say 10 grand more per side. It's probably high. I'm trying to ballpark high for you. I think this size for this room is great. Going any bigger is not any worse, obviously. It doesn't change necessarily viewing angles at all, so you would probably want 2 of the equivalent size. You're looking at maybe 10 grand each side. So that would be up to you to determine. So it's the panels are in, it's a full meter for the next panel. Now that does get you off of the 16:9 ratio because it's 50 by, they're 1 meter by half meter sized panels. So you start to get further away from your 16:9 ratio by doing that. This is almost like within a handful of pixels, 16:9. So to make it easy on your graphics, sticking close to 16 by 9, so you're not having to do any weird cropping or anything. Is definitely, Dave's giving me the yes, please. We don't want to have to do that. So in terms of the graphic side of it, it's way easier to stick closer to that 16:9. So that way you're not counting on the processor to have to do any cropping, or you're not having to count on your graphics person knowing how to do that. Yes, it's like double the size. To stick with that ratio, you'd be looking at like 12 by 18-ish. I can look. I know I have it in my calculator, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Just I've put a lot of LED walls in that calculator, and I can't remember exactly. Yes.
I just wanted to reflect on the fact that we've already seen an LED wall in action here because the Salt and Light Youth Group, they had an LED wall. I think a lot of people came to that. So that very bright wall that they were in front of, that's LED wall.
Yeah, I think if you could speak to,
Yeah.
especially since you probably know the wall that Ryan from
do, I've
Salt and
seen
Light
it.
is using,
I've
the
seen it.
difference in the pixel density of the wall that they use versus what we would be using.
I'm sorry, I love Ryan Murphy so much, but he should not use that LED wall. So that LED wall is about, I think it's a 3.9 or a 4.0 pixel pitch. What we've recommended is a 2.2 pixel pitch. In layman's terms, that means the pixels are closer by almost double. What that means is the picture is a lot smoother the closer you get. If you've ever seen like pointillism painting or artwork, you get up on it and you're like, these are just dots, and then you get back from it and you're like, oh, there's the full picture. Same with a magazine, how they would have been printed, or newspapers. You're right up on the dots, there's a picture. Basically with a 2.2, you can be in this front row and it still looks like a nice, beautiful, smooth image. These are 2.2s. And you can see we're probably 20 feet off from this photo, and that looks like a television. Like, that's smooth. Like, I'm honestly shocked at how good those LED walls looked, because this was the first one of this run that we put in, and I was like, sold, put them everywhere, they're great. So that is one primary difference. The other one is theirs is a Tor setup. So their LEDs are built into the wall, and you can see through the wall. This is this is an install solution. So it's a bit more purpose-built. The cabinets are a bit more sturdy, which I know sounds weird. It's like, well, that's on the road. Well, they're also very lightweight to be on the road. So like wind can blow through them. Like, it's a pretty, his Chauvet wall is pretty crazy. Just the design's wild, but also it does not provide as nearly as good of a picture as this will. So if you're like, wow, that was really bright and a nice picture, these will be doubly as smooth, if I can say it that way. So the picture's beautiful, and if you liked Ryan's, like, this will knock that out of the park in terms of pixel density and brightness.
And I just wanted to pick up on something that Mike had said about
Yeah.
the life of something. So the projector that we've got, just for reference of those who are here watching, the projector that we've got here is about 10 years old.
Yep.
It's either 9 or 10 years old. It's got, I think, about 3,200 hours of runtime on it. So 3,200 hours in the last 9 to 10 years of use of that projector.
Yeah, and generally what we're looking at is anywhere from 30 to 50, depending on pixel density, power, how clean your power is, those types of things. So that's generally what you're going to get out of these walls. So you're going to get, presuming power is good, and presuming all of your modules stay safe and sound, like a kid doesn't throw a baseball at them, you will have 10 years of excellent runtime for your LED walls.
Since power is so important, do we want to put a signal a box before the TV sets, because they're pretty expensive? So if they extend the life because of the power.
Yeah, so that's an option. So there's a few different options. You may want to, so I'll give you the whole picture and then dwindle down to what we can do. It will be cheaper to ask your electrical contractor to put something in. They typically have more purpose built, but then also more cost-effective options than what we do, because what we do is all production heavy, high-end theatrical heavy. So like these ETC lights, ETC's used at Broadway. The curtains that we use are Broadway. Like all of the stuff that we're using is high-end commercial applications, where he may be able to get something a little bit more cost-effective that will do the same production in line with the circuits. $300 or $400 per circuit to keep your walls from going kapooey, I think is a very wise investment. And that's something he can do at the box, he can do up here. Like, there's any number of places where you can put one of those sine and phase inverters in to give you nice clean power, and usually pretty cost effective. Now, if the EC can't do that, we can always send a few options for him to take a look at and install. Again, because it's high voltage, we would not be allowed to touch that. However, we can send him things we've used in Pennsylvania. In terms of the things we use, they're typically at source. So we have a lot of different power products, but they will be significantly more expensive, mostly because the higher end you get, they start to be networkable, which may be a benefit. I love seeing the network stuff, because then I'm like, oh, like, we had a weird power surge. This is why this broke. Here you go. Like, it's a lot easier to solve issues, and if you have somebody who's doing networking here or overseeing all that, it's useful data to have, but you're also paying for that functionality, which may or may not be necessary for your use case. Again, I like it to nerd out about it. Doesn't mean it's right for everybody. A simple inline thing that an electrical contractor can get is just as effective, cheaper, usually minus the networking side. So it's something that I would definitely suggest looking into, or that we can connect with the EC and send our suggestions of what we've used / electrical contractors we've worked with have used, because we try to work closely with ECs, because the more that they learn about what we do, the more we learn about what they do, the better off everybody is, because then we won't blow things up when we're plugging stuff in. So that's definitely an option, and something I wouldn't shy away from looking at further with your electrical contractor. Yeah. Yeah.
This goes back to the lighting and everything. The electrician's going to have to install those, correct? Not just run the wiring for you to have it there for it to meet code, because he has to actually hardwire it to the panel back there, right? Okay, all right.
Yeah, so the most likely order of operations will be the EC will run the circuits to locations and put in a back box for us with threaded rod in the back, so we can put that 12-inch stem in, and then we will install the light. He will then have to come back and make final terminations. In PA, we will often do a lot of the final terminations because the ECs don't like to come back. But again, because of code here, we would prefer not to touch that, because we don't want to get you guys in trouble. We don't want to get in trouble. The more up and up, more on the up and up we are, the better it is for everybody. I think that's both honoring of you guys, honoring of the kingdom, and all that. So but that would most likely be the order of operations for that. Yeah. So those are the LED walls. I don't want to take up a ton of your time tonight, but I'll keep moving if there's no other questions with the LED wall things. Excellent. So like I said, we're going to talk about rigging really quickly. I've actually been kind of fond of the rigging shenanigans and all the physics that goes into it. I am not our physics expert. We have an excellent guy who is ETC certified, so the same people we do all of our lighting from, they actually do motorized rigging. So Dave, if that's something you want to ever talk about, from Ryan's suggestion. We do a whole lot of different rigging and solutions. That top right corner is actually something I had Sight and Sound put together for me before I was even working in this industry, because I was just fascinated by how they put it all together. And if you know Sight and Sound up in Lancaster, they do some pretty legitimate work up there. And I used to have some connections with them. So they've helped me with some things, but also that massive cage structure that you see that was from some of the other pictures, we actually hung that whole thing up in the ceiling. Oh, I never want to do it again, but we did it. So we did some stuff to get that up there, but it is up there and it is secure and it is never coming back down. So as you can see, we secured lights to it and a bunch of that. So we're very intentional about making sure all of our things are rated at least 8-to-1, which means that if I hang a 50-pound speaker, the cable and all of the rigging needs to be be able to hold at least 8 times more than that. The EU is between 8 and 10, depending on what area. That's the typical theatrical standard for most places, is 8 to 10. We do, when we're doing our rigging inspections, we will say that at least if it meets 5-to-1, that they'll probably be okay. A lot of schools, as you may or may not know, don't always spend the money on rigging, which is sad because your children are underneath it. So, but they often don't get the best rigging, and so when we go out and see inspections, we try to tell them, hey, like, this is at least 5-to-1. It's not the recommended, but at 5-to-1, like, you're gonna have to have the whole class hanging from this point to get it to come down. So, but we try to do at least 8-to-1 for all of our points, so that way everything is safe, solid, and secure. Whether it's 3 tons of trussing, or in this case, you'll see that we have a piece of strut here. That's that square piece, and a UB2B. That's the part that's going to hold your fixture on. So this photo, which you'll recognize from some of the other photos, obviously with cleaner cabling, of course, this photo was still during install. That's how those lights will be secured. There will be a piece of strut, and all those lights will be directly in. So that way they're not hanging down super low and getting in the way of people up there. So that way they're nice and secured here. We can paint the strut so it blends right in with your walls. This is a really cost-effective way to do some really heavy hanging of equipment without it looking bad. We can obviously do pipe and motorized things and all of that, but due to budget and due to wanting some flexibility, We do a lot of rigging for both the lights that'll be up here, as well as your house lights this way, so they're not hanging, or not your house lights, your front lighting. So like I said, we will paint that, we will dress all the cables appropriately. This photo was mid-install, so it's not as pretty as it should be. But the goal will be that that's all seamlessly disappeared into the paint, and you just have lights up there, and it's pretty and nice and gorgeous and all the fun things. So you're getting all the color and none of the mess. And without lights hanging down from a bunch of stuff, because obviously all of that cage, that's a lot. And in this space would look kind of crazy, right? It wouldn't fit the vibe. This is supposed to, like, this is very clean lines, very natural feeling place. So we want all of the equipment to disappear in it. Hence using strut, tying into structure, and then using those UB2Bs to attach to all the lights and putting them right in. That allows them to be removed. If ever in the future you want to update, you can reuse the UB2Bs, which are that little hardware component in the strut, or you can add more lights, you can move them. If Ryan gets really excited about something, he's like, we're doing something crazy for VBS and we need all the lights just right here. He can get up there and do that. So this will give you the flexibility to move them as you wish, although we will kind of put you in our initial design that we've talked about, just having general backlighting and downlighting hung up that way. So yeah, the rigging's really straightforward in here, to be quite honest with you, especially once all of the ceiling gets a little bit more exposed and we know where that direction's going. We can really set some of those points and really tie into structure really well to do all of that. So I don't think any of that will be difficult, but I just think it's worth mentioning because it is part of the design for the hardware for, it says batten pipe, but this is part of our rigging product that we have, or a bundle that we have that covers all of the hardware for all of our strut. So we're not actually attaching pipe to it, but so the description's a little wrong, but just to give you an idea, for strut and pipe and the UB2Bs, which is what the strut miscellaneous hardware is a part of. Or I'm sorry, the UB2Bs are below, and then that's some miscellaneous things for the super strut for all of the different areas. So really cost-effective way of getting all of your lights up in the air, ultimately. Do you have questions about the rigging? Again, I'm not the rigging guy per se. I just know our general best practices. So, but if I can answer anything more specifically about it. Sweet. Yes, sir.
Although rarely it happens here, we have had a 2.1 earthquake before. Is that included in the structural soundness?
Yes, it would be. Now, if the building falls down from the earthquake, I can't control your wall coming down, but But the lights will still be attached to that portion of the wall when it hits the ground. So I don't want to guarantee that, but I feel pretty strongly that it'll work out that way. But yeah, generally speaking, because of that 8-to-1, it takes a lot of, because that's shear force, since that will be screwed in, shear coming down, it's going to take a lot to break off. Like everything we use is rated hardware. We do not mess around with using open eyes. We're not using anything that's not, like we spend a lot on hardware. In fact, like this is probably going to be close to what our cost just for the hardware is, because it's expensive to get rated good hardware, but we care so much about it. We'd rather spend it on the right things and make sure you have the right things and try to get you as cost effective as possible, because it's better for us and to be quite frank, our liability insurance would prefer it that way. So so we try to do that all as safely as possible. All of it will be rated as such to help withstand anything. And everything is, we provide safety cables. If you look in we have the CS Junior bundle and we have the PAR bundle. All of those include a safety cable for every light that's going to tie into the structural, or into the strut, which is tied into structure. So all of that will be safe and sound. So even if the hardware, the UB2B fails, the safety cable, like it would take the UB2B and the light and the strut to fail for the light to fall. Yeah, any other questions? Excellent. So this is the last little bit. So professional services. I was actually in Annapolis, that picture where it looks like we're crawling around in a sewer, in part because we were crawling around in their sewer to run cables. Man, do I have stories of that install. But so this is some of the folks from our team. We lead worship together. That's Chris standing proudly underneath that ridiculous rigging thing that we created. That's at a historic church in Annapolis. When you pull into Annapolis, there's the circle there and the church in the middle of the circle. That's that church. So we've done work with them. Yeah, it's a beautiful building. Yes, St. Anne's, thank you. Awesome place. And so we've done some work there. But the reason I put some of these in is just that our team has a lot of expertise in a lot of these areas. We try to be as knowledgeable about all of this to give you both, to ultimately give you the best of who we are. We're a team that works hard on site, and we're going to give you as much labor and knowledge and intentionality to get you across the finish line on this project. So that entire professional service bundle is for our labor, for lift rentals, because we will have a small single man. It's aluminum, so there's no like structural realities, because I'm a big dude, but I weigh more than our single man lift. So like that's not going to be an issue bringing that in, because it's an aluminum, it's run by a drill yoke, like it's super lightweight. So like there's some there's some associated costs with bringing lifts up, having to have a truck bringing that down, some different things. So that's all of what's in that professional services bundle, and that's a big portion of this project, is the labor that it takes that's the 44 number. Now, I have not changed that since our initial conversations, even though equipment costs have continued to gone up, and our margins have actually been minimized as the cost of everything has gone up, because I want to get you guys the best cost on this. Now, the price since I've put this in has gone up about another $12,000. That's a lot of money. Now, I've done my best. I've pulled back some of the cost on some of the other equipment, so the juniors have gone up, and I've brought the margin on that back down to get you close to the same cost. The house lighting costs have gone up, and I just actually saw that this morning. The ETC must have updated it last night or this morning, so I updated it and sent it to Ryan. But the project's gone up another $12,000 for hardware. But like I said, I'm trying to not move any of our labor numbers to accommodate you guys, because I don't want to put you out from doing this project. I ultimately, I want to help you get there. And so we're actually below what our current margin target is to try to help you get to that point, because we believe deeply in your mission and what you're trying to do here. So I've updated that, and I've given that to David, so he has the updated costs. But I just want to make a note of that, because I know a quarter from now, there's a lot of equipment on this package, on this proposal. It could go up another 12 grand in a quarter. I can't guarantee which way it's going to go. I cannot make any promises on any of that, because I just don't know. But ETC is starting to get more equipment out. They're starting to catch up on all of their COVID delays. So I'm hoping that these slow down. But there's some manufacturers that still every 4 to 6 weeks send us price increases on technology and the associated hardware. So I've done my best. I haven't touched anything on the rigging side. I've tried to keep all these prices down as minimal as possible, but unfortunately, ETC, they've continued to raise some of these costs. And I've tried to absorb some of them, but I can't absorb all of them. So I just want to let you guys know that I know there's any number of times where you may vote, move forward, all those things. This is not meant to be a sales pitch or meant to be a pressure thing by any means. I want to arm you with the information so you guys can make the best decision for you, that if you do put off the project any further, it could go up. I want to get you the best price I can, and so if it does go up down the road, I'll do my best to absorb any of those costs. We may make some adjustments on labor to bring some of these things down as we train some new technicians. However, it's a very minimal amount in terms of hourly time that it would go down for tier 1 installers. So I can't say that even that would help if the price of goods goes up any further. So I know that may come off as a pressure tactic, or that may come off as a weird thing for me to say, but I'd rather you know that right now is the best price I can get you, is the most updated proposal. And I want to get that to you so you can not have to go another 12 months and then have another 20% increase. Because that's always a bummer when you go back and like, a year ago we could have done this for 40 grand less. Maybe, yeah. And it's kind of a bummer. And in fact, I talked with Seth, one of the owners of Spire, today as I was updating this right before sending it to David, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to get them the best price that I can, but I don't, this is already as bare bones as I can get it. And so he and I, probably for 20 minutes just lamented that we can't do a better job finding ways to make these things more cost effective, because we also believe in the hardware we're choosing. We don't want to give you something cheap that breaks 3 years down the road. We want you to have something 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the making that you can grow from, not have to fight every Sunday. And so we believe very deeply that this is the right hardware for you, and I believe that pulling the trigger sooner rather than later will be more beneficial to get you the best price. Now, again, if that means that you still do need to wait and go through some processes, like I understand churches have processes, they need to go through voting, like I don't want to pressure you to get away from any of that, but I just want to arm you with knowledge because I care deeply about what you guys are doing. Like Dave said, when we, like going back to that first picture, like to an element, there's a bit of goofiness there, like Chris is posing for a photo, for goodness sake. Like, we're a bunch of folks who love the church, love getting to do what we do. Like, we are a family, and like Dave said, like, there's an element of like having Dave and Ryan over at Carlisle UMC was like, oh, this feels right. Like, this is a partnership in the making. That's a beautiful thing. And I would hate for it to be something where, because we wait a quarter and we add 20 grand to this, that the project can't move forward. So I hope, at the end of the day, I'll just put it blank. I hope you're hearing that as, I care about what you're doing, not as a sales tactic. I'm a really bad salesperson. I frankly am. I don't know how I'm doing sales because I don't want what's best for me. Like, we all joke, like, that at Spire, the owners and myself, we're all really bad capitalists because, like, we need to make a profit to survive, and that's part of the partnership is that you guys pay us to partner with you, and there's a mutual exchange of information and growth and all these things. That's the point of the partnership, and there's a cost to that. But we want to help as much as we can. So I want to just provide that to you, give you that heads up about the cost increases and some of those things so you can have those conversations internally and figure out what's best for you guys. Again, I don't want to pressure you in any direction. That is not what this is meant to be. But love Dave, love Ryan, love you guys through proxy, by proxy. And just I want to get you everything you could dream of getting here this crack of the bat. So that I feel like I'm just leaving it on a bummer of a note. But at the end of the day, I think this is a great project. I stand behind all of it fully and really think it's going to help you guys move forward in some incredible ways.
How long does it take to install all this equipment? A couple of weeks, a month?
So install time, so the question was, how long will this take to install? I can give you a definitive number when I go back look at my bundles. I think I have in here approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks. It's somewhere in there, given what the final price. Yeah, I'd have to do some math backwards. Yeah, I want to say that that's about 3 weeks of time, but it's a crew of 3 guys for 3 weeks. Based on that, and it's probably 3 weeks and like an extra 2 days. Now, what's also included there is programming time. We obviously need to program all these presets and things. There's also some shop time in here. We're going to get some things set up at the shop so we can show up, plug it in, and take up as little time as possible because our goal is to not interrupt your Sunday flow. So our goal would be LED walls 1 week, you're up and running. Next week, we tackle front lighting. Next week, we do the rest of the theatrical or something along those lines. I'll partner with the install guys and with David and Ryan to figure out the best, what the strategy is to not interrupt your Sunday flow. But if we go 3 weeks and we interrupt 2 Sundays, we will do our best so that way we leave you running entirely. It's just, hey, look, our new system's up and running from last week to this week, and it's magic. And well, it's actually 3 guys just crawling around praying. But that would be the goal. Yeah.
I have the same question.
Oh, excellent. Oh, I'm coming, I promise.
My question is, if we were not ready to do the whole project, but had a desire to mitigate some of the costs, has Spire the ability to hold the equipment if we purchased the equipment to prevent that from continuing to go up while we're doing other pieces, should we desire to postpone it in final install and everything in a short frame?
Sure, so there's a couple ways we can look at that. So generally how we do, I've got to give you our invoicing structure to be able to give you an idea of what that would look like in like real life terms. So typically what we do is when we sign the project, everybody's like, yeah, moving forward, great. We initially invoice the first 60% of the project. That 60% covers most of the hardware. Because this is all custom quoted, custom built, we order per project. And then we will bill the next 28% upon first day on site, and then we will invoice the last 12% upon completion. So that's how that typically works. So what we could look at doing is doing 100% of equipment and then phasing labor. That's a potential. I'd want to make sure we're really strategic about how we're communicating that, because we typically do not hold equipment in the sense that if we're ordering it, it's coming here. We will drop ship it here because that saves your labor. If we're having to get it from our warehouse, move it from warehouse to trailer to here, this is a lot of equipment. The LED walls will even arrive here. So, and they'll be in road cases so they can be easy to wheel, and we can set all that up. That's all communication that can happen later. So it is a possibility, but I'd want to make sure we communicate exactly what your needs are so we can figure out what the invoicing schedule would be. I would also say that while Spire is able to do that, depending on the full breadths of our partnership later down the road with Pearson, that may be harder to do if we're doing some of our invoicing through their accountant, because there's some partnerships we're working on between Spire and this other company, Pearson. So if we were to do it today, we could potentially do that. A month from now, I can't guarantee that we could do that because I don't know how they function yet. So, yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Another question just came up, and perhaps everyone else is already in tune with this, but when you mentioned Pearson, does this mean you're being taken over by someone, or you're merging, or what's happening?
Yeah. So it's a company we partner with. One of our current owners works for Pearson in the day-to-day. They do Pro AV in education, and we do primarily House of Worship. So we're working with them on a whole host of things. I don't know the full breadth of those conversations. That's with the owners currently. But right now it's strictly a partnership, but could change in the future. That's why I don't want to speak out of turn, because I don't know what they're working on necessarily. I just know I want to speak to now, but I don't know what the future would hold for our continued partnership with Pearson. Yeah.
So whatever we would contract with your company at this point would be adhered to, even in the light of new realities, shall I say? Okay. And my original question was about training. We have two amazing AV people at the back of this church, in Ryan and Dave, but it may not always be that way, and so training is really essential. So for your company, what kind of training do you provide at the point of install, but then what sort of materials or whatever do you provide for training after the fact that people who are not experts could possibly use?
Excellent question. So in terms of training, there's an hour of included training in the proposal. Now, you don't have a ton of interface with the system. It's mostly lighting control that you guys have. So most of that can be trained up within an hour. We don't do a ton of user adoption training, meaning that like if Ryan wanted to know how to patch a light, we'd likely have time during that hour to show him. But most of what we're trying to do is just give him whoever is part of that training, a general understanding of all of the systems. If you need more than an hour, we can always add more time to that. I don't know if you'll need it, especially if we can just find a time while we're already on site at the end of the project and say, hey, like 5 of our folks are gonna come here at 4 or 5 o'clock and we're gonna do a quick hour training. I don't think you're going to need more than that. However, if you do need more training, we can do that. We usually bill it hourly just because it's easier that way, because that's how we do all of our other labor rates. But we can also continue to do ongoing training with you. If that's something we want to work into our PM, our preventative maintenance package, we can talk about that. We also, part of that PM is phone support, as well as an on-site, I think it's twice a year where we'll come on site and clean and test and make sure everything's still working properly. If we want to tag in some training along with those visits, we can always do that way. A lot of what we do is on site. However, we are in the process of trying to build out a full online Spire Academy, I think is what we're calling it. Because I'm wearing so many hats, I haven't gotten that far yet. But my goal is to potentially relaunch that and do training videos. All of those caveats aside, you don't need us to do that, because ETC, because they're such a large company, everything that we're providing, they have like step-by-step training videos of every single function of it. I'm not going to say every, but almost all of their products that a typical user would need to have their hands on. So the color source, all of the fixtures, all of those brochures, and we typically will just send a bunch of those, because you can find all of those online. I will just send a massive email to Dave and be like, here's all of the things. So anything that could be helpful. And a lot of them have YouTube libraries too. So you get on ETC, you can look up ETC, look up the CS20AV, bing, bang, boom, it's right there. You've got a whole 20 videos just about that lighting console, enough to feast on training for days. So all of those would be resources we can point you to as well as be a part of. Yeah.
Thank you. Tyler, there are some things that aren't in the project that have to be evaluated in thinking about this. We have electrical, we have preventive maintenance, we have project management, are all not in that. So as well as any wall work that we might need in order to hang on that other side. So just having the experience that you have in working with other houses of worship, and some of them were looking like they were similar in some ways. Could you speak in broad brush strokes to what your experience might have been, even if it is in Pennsylvania versus Maryland? On costing?
In terms of cost. So I haven't typically been brought into those conversations. Like we've oftentimes subbed under the GC, so I don't often know what the whole project costs. I only know what our portion is, as we've either bid on it or we're the secondary prime. Now, with that being said, if you want to take a space, so I'm just going to give you total costs for what we've had on top of. So Carlisle UMC, the tech budget was $1 million, and the overall building, now this was a full brand new building, like field to building, was like $7 or $8 million. Or I'm sorry, it was $12 million total by the time everything was said and done because COVID. Spry, which is that far right bottom, is much more similar. That was a retrofit of a space, and our portion of that project was probably only 30. I know it was under 50. It was under 50. I want to say it was around 30, somewhere between 36 and 45 for our portion, and the whole project cost about 80 or 90. So now that was this used to be a very old school sanctuary, so they did a ton of work in here. Generally, what I would be looking at, if you're talking about an electrical contractor, you're probably looking at 10 grand to do the work in here, maybe more, because I know with the codes and things around here, I'm assuming your electricians cost more than some of our electricians who aren't quite electricians in PA. So you're probably looking at maybe closer to around 15 to do the work here. Now, I also know you have a guy who's connected with the church who would likely give you a better deal than that. For project management, if it would depend on if you would want us to do it. It would be $150 an hour for additional project management. So if that's any additional meetings or any admin outside of what we're already doing. Now, I do have some administrative time in here because I know we will have ongoing conversations with Dave. If you need me to come back down, like there's a certain amount that we just put in as part of our bundle, knowing that we will have several more hours than that, and we just eat that cost. So if it's anything where we're actually where the EC is sub to us, you're probably looking at another $5 grand to have us be the primary and have the EC sub under us. Now, again, I wouldn't suggest that because I will gladly just send emails to the EC regardless, because I won't be able to come down every time the EC needs something since I am about 2 hours away. So a lot of our communication will happen via email and phone anyway. I wouldn't suggest paying me to be like, hey, that's circuit. Okay, bye. I will just do that. Because that's, if the EC is successful, we're successful. So that's not something that you necessarily need to pay for us unless you're want us to be the point person. Now, again, I don't want to pull Dave in, but I know Dave's also been that person for you. So if Dave's able to just continue to help us communicate, he's got he's getting a microphone. So anyway, so all I had to say, we can talk about more of that, but we very rarely bill for project management time outside of our typical bundle, which is only a few hours of time for me to come down here and do stuff like this. Like just the time today, I'm already over that budget amount, and that's just what it is because we want to be here to help you. So.
And preventive maintenance, is there a cost?
$3,500. Yeah, so the PM's $3,500 annually. That is in your proposal. It's $3,500 annually, and that includes 2 site visits, 2 hours of phone support, monthly, billed at 15-minute intervals. So even if Dave just needs something for 5 minutes, it would be a full 15-minute interval because it's a lot easier to track that way, ultimately for a medium to small size team like us. So that's, and I do believe that there's a whole write-up for the PM as part of that. So if you need additional copies of that, we can always provide that. But there's a whole PM write-up in the proposal as well that gives you the full breakdown of everything that's part of it.
Yeah, my only comment was going to be that while we're having all these conversations now,
Yeah.
I'm kind of facilitating right now.
Yep.
If we do move forward with this project, like a lot of the folks that are here, members of the trustees, and Carol is one of the leaders of the trustees.
Sure.
And so the trustees will be really more of
Sweet.
the formal decision makers about how the
Okay.
project gets managed and all that kind of stuff. I'm happy
Wonderful.
as a technical person to be involved, right?
Okay.
But this is something that would get decided by. I just wanted to make sure that that's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I'm not planning to be that person.
Okay, excellent. Well, and
That's a
that's
trustee's
why I just
decision.
put it out in the universe, because either you very much want to do that or very much not, and it would become clear either way. So anyway, but I'm. Yeah, so whatever is decided by the church, I can give you definitive numbers. It's really hard for me to say because we will bill it to what you need. I don't like to overbill, but we also can't afford to underbill with how much we're already trying to absorb right now for our clients. So that's maybe the most specific I can get. I'm sorry, did I touch everything? Yes, you did. Okay, all right, yeah. Anybody else have any questions for me? Spire, this project, why is this crazy red-haired dude just been yelling at you for an hour, 2 hours? Anything else I can help with? Yeah, it's been 2 hours, man.
Tell us a little bit about the company.
Sure, yeah.
You've been in business.
Yeah.
You talked about 3 guys. Is that your focus?
Yeah, so I brought this up. So we're Spire AVL. You'll see, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's that little purple triangle in the graphic. That's our ode to a church spire. So since the beginning of the church, or beginning of the company, we've been really excited about what the church is doing, the local church, and so that's sort of our tip of the caps. We haven't always been 100% focused on the church market. The company's kind of changed ownership 2 or 3 times, and so now that I'm kind of helping to direct traffic and vision, we're really honing in on supporting and helping churches. Thanks, guys, for being here. It's nice to meet you. Bye. Sorry, I just figured I'd make it weird. Yep, of course, thank you. So we've been in 9 years, I believe, if I recall. I've only been involved in the company since 2019. So the company existed and was actually under new ownership by the time I got plugged in with Spire. But like I said, all of those folks are church folks, so it was just sort of natural that we're like, well, we're helping all of our churches. Like, what's to stop us from helping a bunch of others? And so that's really become our ethos, our mission, and our vision. I'm actually in the process of rewriting all of that to more fit who we currently are now coming out of COVID, that we are a company that's trying to help churches grow, ultimately. Whether that's technologically, whether that's numerically, whether that's spiritually, we want to help everything that we do in the area that we're experts in to help churches grow and develop, in whatever that looks like for you. Whatever your vision is what we want to help support. So that's sort of our ethos as a company. That's who we are. Yes, but to address, you asked about people. Sorry, I had that one photo up of us. So the guy with the chain around his neck, that is Chris. He is one of the owners. He's the one who's currently working day-to-day for Pearson, but has ownership with us. Up until the beginning of the year, he was day-to-day with us as well, and is still very much involved in the background. In fact, the reason I stepped into the CEO role at the beginning of the year was because Chris felt comfortable just being like, hey, man, you got it. I'm going to go help these guys and go on a new adventure. So, but Chris still works with us in the background on the organizational development because he's brilliant at that kind of thing. Seth is the bald man with the light strapped around his head there that you're looking down upon. He is the other owner. He's involved in the day-to-day, and an excellent guy. He's our brainiac. I think every good tech team needs the brainiac. So that's Seth. I'm sorry you can't see his face and just the back of his bald head. But Seth's one of the other owners. Somebody who's not in any of these photos is Alan. He is our programmer, designer, tier 3 installer. if Seth weren't our brainiac, Alan would be. So I love Alan dearly. He's an incredible guy. I'm excited for you to meet him if and when we can partner together. He's a brilliant guy. He's very soft-spoken, but a hard worker and somebody who I really value as being part of our team. In fact, all of these guys, like Chris, Seth, Alan, all three of them are lovely, lovely guys whose heart is for what this is about. Like I said, we're all really bad capitalists in part because we want to help the church, and we'd rather you guys succeed, and we just get to be a part of that ride. And then I'm the fourth person. So Alan and I are both full-time. He does all the back-end stuff. I do all the front-end stuff. So I'm sort of the person that gets to go out and say hi to all of you beautiful people and do all the sales and design, and I'm doing all of the primary organizational development things for the company right now. Yeah. So and we're in the process of hiring potentially 1 or 2 more people because we need more people. But you may all know how hiring's going, so it's a slow burn for us right now. But likely another salesperson and possibly another design person, so I can step out of some of those roles and do the CEO thing, because that's getting the back burner right now, unfortunately. So yeah, sorry, that's maybe too inside baseball, but that's sort of where we're at, what we're doing. We as a company are growing and changing, and like I said, we've got some of these other companies we partner with, and to help them grow too, which is crazy because Pearson's like a multi-million-dollar company. So yeah, we're doing some really cool things, and I'm really excited about where we're going as a company, and I'm really excited for the future, working with more churches and really honing in on that being our mission and vision, and not getting distracted with some of the other stuff. So yeah, of course. Anything else that I can help with? Yeah, of course, yeah. Thank you guys so much for letting me talk at you for 2 hours. I appreciate it. I know that was a lot to absorb, a lot to think through, but I really appreciate you kind of sitting it through with me because there's a lot here to talk about. I know Dave and Ryan have done an excellent job talking through a lot of it with you, but I want you to be able to envision this space as being like a brand new home. That like this is a playground of ministry that you guys are going to get to partake in. So I hope some of the things that we got to talk about today can set the tone for that. So yeah, thank you guys.